And it is another great Black Belts and Boardrooms Friday. It's been a long week, but man, I've been excited. People are asking all the time are asking who is going to be on the next episode of Black Belts and Boardrooms. We've had people ping us, I've had people email me, etc. Amir, who do we have today?
Oh my goodness, Renard. I'm excited for our guest today, partly because I think he has a unique perspective that he's going to share with us. And that unique perspective has to do with fashion. Now, one might say, what does black belts or anybody with the word black belts in their podcast have to do with fashion? I think we're going to learn today a lot from our guest, Earl Rich, who has seen many a high powered wardrobes. So, welcome to the show, Earl.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for inviting me as well.
Of course, of course. So, Earl, you've seen plenty of wardrobes, good and bad. Was this always an aspiration? I mean, how did you even get into this? I'm curious to learn.
Yeah, great. Well, I started in retail, in luxury retail, and I saw a gap. But before that, I've always had a curiosity and an interest in clothing. So as long as I can remember, early teens, going to church, and we dressed up for church. We wore suits, jackets, pants, and that type of thing. And the community I was actually living in, a lot of people did, I guess, blue collar work. But on a Sunday, you wouldn't tell because everybody wore a suit, a jacket, shirt, shoes. And you could really see how somebody changed and morphed, from their 9 to 5 on towards Sunday, all dressed up. You would never guess what they did during the course of the week. And so that really intrigued me. And so we also had a conventions where the churches from around the country would get together. And it's one time of year, it was almost like Ascot. I don't know if you're familiar with Ascot, where it's a racing event where royalty goes and everybody dresses up. And so it was like that. And we would dress up to go to church. And, you'd have hundreds and hundreds of people. And it was actually, it was before, remember the red carpets when people go, oh, who are you wearing? What are you wearing? That type of thing. Well, we had our own mini version, our own micro version of that. And we would also sit down and just watch and just observe people as they would go by and think, oh my gosh, I like his shoes, like his jacket, like her dress, her hat, things like that. And so it was almost like, it became quite competitive actually from year to year. You want to be that person that maybe people talked about during the course of the year. And so that's how my interest in clothing really began. And then as I said before, I worked in luxury menswear. And, I just saw a gap with men walking around the store. They would buy clothes and not necessarily buy the right clothes for them or for that situation, but they would just buy nice clothes because it was luxury, right? So, they thought, what, I can't go wrong buying a nice jacket with this particular brand. But did it translate though in the environments that they found themselves in? It may not have, because we weren't trained to ask questions as to why are you wearing this? What's it for? What are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to project? How would you like people to perceive you? Those questions weren't asked. It was just a matter of I need a blue suit, a shirt, a nice pair of shoes, and off I go. And so when business casual came around, and we're wearing lots of khakis and, button down blue shirts and things like that, people became unhinged because it was easy to put a suit on because it's two matching pieces and you throw it in a shirt and a tie. That was quite easy for most men to do. But when you open the options to say, okay, you can pretty much wear anything just so long as it's nice, people got lost, and so I saw the need then to say, you know what, I can help. You need a guiding hand. And so I was only able to offer you things that were within the confines of that store. If you needed anything more, then I couldn't do anything with that. And so hence the reason I decided, you know what, let me strike it out on myself and offer a service for executives to help them, not only professionally, but also socially as well. Because there has to be continuity between your professional image and also your social as well. Because business isn't always in the office. Sometimes on the golf course, sometimes it's outside at social events. And so people are looking for continuity as well. So that's essentially how it all began.
Wow. I love how you stitched it from the church where you were effectively wearing a uniform. And you reminded me with that because I went to Catholic school as well as public school. So uniform was an easy way for me to show up and blend in with everybody else. And in public school, it's no different. The only difference is you're not wearing a single uniform. It could be your t-shirt and jeans with Jordans or whatever shoes you have. And that was sort of a signal, a social signal to tell you, hey, I belong with this group over here, or I belong with that group over here. The sports athletes dressed one way versus, the ones who were more, into studying and education. So, you know, when I think about what you do, I mean, you are in the business of making people feel like $1 million, regardless of where the setting is. And I think that has a tremendous value because just speaking for myself, I don't necessarily know if I should wear a certain t-shirt with a certain, trousers or whatever at the golf course. Like I'll wear whatever is comfortable and I'll go show up. How do you think about the individual when you're helping them get dressed up for occasions? And then how do you help them bring that mindset towards continuity in the different settings that they operate in? Is there a framework that you follow?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. So it all starts with a consultation. So I need to understand who you are, what you're about, and what you're trying to achieve. Everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got a different goal, a different aim. It's not one thing fits all. It's very different for different people. So I need to understand who you are. So I like your interests, the things you like and dislike, even the music that you like as well. Also, your branding. What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? What's your brand? So all those things are taken into consideration whilst we're putting together a um, a directive as to or the brief of where we want to go with and for the reason why you approached me. But as for what you're trying to achieve, you sometimes may see it one way, and as we consult, it may turn into something else. So you want to project a certain image, you want to speak and communicate a certain message. Then we are addressing a little differently than somebody who just wants to dress nicely. You have to be intentional with the kind of clothing you're wearing because you're trying to communicate specifically a message. So so the person you're trying to be in a situation may be very different with the message that you're communicating. So one of the things I will look at is your setting. Where do you work? What rank are you at? Are you trying to aspire to be somewhere else? Are you looking to be somebody who's approachable? Are you looking to look like you're the boss, but not really be the boss? You want when somebody opens a door, if you're working with a team, that they can identify you, but not necessarily be the one that stands out too much. So there's like very micro, small things that come to mind and I put together. Colors, certain colors work really well professionally, and some are better socially as well. So we try to look at you being a social aspect and also the business aspect as well. But I don't not typically address somebody for both. One consultation will be for business, and another consultation will be for social. I don't do both at the same time because that way it can become quite confusing for people and they get a bit lost as well. So yeah, if I was consulting with you, we would talk, we would address your concerns, the things you like and dislike, and then we would put together a framework. Now that framework starts with a mood board, basically to get the soul of the look and the experience you're trying to convey as well. And once you agree with that and sign off on that, then we put together a lookbook, a digital lookbook, which gives you all the outfits and they're clickable links, so you can actually purchase them as well from the lookbook. But also, it's a resource as well that you can use as well um, onwards from that point. And it has a long tail to it too, because essentially men's style and fashion doesn't change too much. And so you're able then to use that to shop with that yourself personally outside of the time that we spend together. So yeah, so that's essentially my process. And then also in addition to that, there's follow-up calls as well that you can call and we can consult and talk about, how you're feeling about the way you're looking, the things the compliment you may have received and things like that. So yeah, so it's a collaborative effort. And most of the time people are quite pleased with it. It's one of those services that you don't quite realize you needed it until you've actually had it. Then you say the light bulb goes off, and you're like, yes, I definitely needed this. One of the things that a lot of people do, they rely on their spouse or their significant other to help them get dressed, which is fine. They may have a better eye than you, but it doesn't mean they have the best eye. They just seem to have a better eye than you. And also the clothing that they like you in may not necessarily be the right clothing that translates in the environment that you find yourself in as well. And so that's one of the key distinctions between hiring a professional versus a loved one who may at some point get tired of choosing your wardrobe for you. You know, and like, well, you need to do it yourself or get somebody to do this for you. So that's where I come in that situation.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with the comment you just made, which is it's a service where you don't know you need it until you have it. And I feel the same way about, for example, executive coaching. And I know Renard and I met through the same executive coach. But something I'm curious to learn about in that respect is, you know, is there um, is there a high-powered wardrobe that you built that maybe you don't have to name names that you just saw and said, "Wow, this was such a faux pas." Maybe there's a fun story there somewhere you could share.
I mean, yeah, somebody's wardrobe.
Yeah. So
Uh,
somebody who is maybe, in a position with role power, and you
mhm.
saw their wardrobe and says, "Oh my goodness, there's so much opportunity here that can be had. What are you thinking with this set of colors or this set of
Oh,
outfit?"
right. Okay, so another distinction I'd like to make as well is I don't necessarily work with current wardrobes. I build from the moment that we meet. So whatever you did beforehand, that's what you did beforehand, and I start afresh with myself. I don't retool or rework other people's work. So we start afresh and we have a blank slate, and we typically go from there. Now, taste is something that is interesting because there are things that people like, and they really hold and gravitate towards, and that's been a conversation that's quite sometimes difficult to approach, um, because the way I see taste and the way somebody else sees taste is quite subjective, isn't it? But though, that if it's not translating where you are, then maybe it's not the right taste for that situation. So taste has been quite a challenge for some people to kind of get over the hump to rely on me to say, you know what, you're right. Let's go with you, as opposed to this is what I like to wear. And I'm not discounting what you like to wear. We all have our likes, right? We like certain pants, we like certain colors and things like that. But not everything translates in the situations you find yourself in. And that's why I guess that's the key difference with myself. I spend an inordinate amount of time just analyzing and looking at situations, how people can show their best, and also translating the information that they've given me. The other thing as well, I mean, I'm very similar to a costume designer. So when a director puts together a movie and draws up those characters, they consult with a costume designer who helps bring that character to life. And so when you watch your favorite movies and you look at the character and you think, why am I invested? Why have I been drawn into this character? It's because not only the actors brought it to life, but the costume designer has made them look like how you think they should look in that scene and in that movie. And so I did essentially the same thing. So you can keep your tastes and wear those maybe in other environments. But if you really want to hit the nail on the head and leave nothing to chance, then that's why you would hire somebody like me to help you get there and achieve those things.
Very good, very good. It makes me ponder a question. Does style have to do with how tall you are? If someone's shorter, do you look at style differently than someone who's, say, 6'3", 6'4", etc.? Does that actually matter when it comes to style when you're trying to look at the wardrobe for 'em?
No, not so. I mean, we're all human, right? Becoming different shapes and sizes. So style is something that it's, like I said, it's almost like subjective, but there is a prescribed way for certain settings. And so yes, so somebody who's 6'4", 6'5", and versus somebody who's 5'5", a blue suit is a blue suit. It's all down to proportions, and a lot of times, lots of men get lost in proportions. They'll go shopping and they'll buy a suit or a garment, and it fits generally well, but then it ends there. And so when you see them walking out in their environments, the pants are too long. They didn't get them tailored. The shirt is too long or too short. You find that the jacket sleeve length may be too long or even too short. Some adjustments need to be made in the jacket to make it fit nicely, not just to fit. So when sometimes I have a keen eye, so and it's one of those occupational things. You go into a room, you're always scanning the room to see, what people wearing and things like that. And yeah, you notice, you need a tailor. So it's not just enough to buy a suit off the rack and think, you know what, I've got my blue suit and off I go. No, you need it tailored. So somebody who's 6'5" needs it tailored as much as somebody who's 5'5". So fashion, style. You know what? I try to take out fashion because fashion is fleeting and it changes so quickly. Style is something that lasts longer and it's more and is it more expressive as well. So your style is something that I kind of one of the words I would really hold on to and take out fashion. Fashion can be quite daunting for some people as well. So like, no, I'm not in fashion. No, you're in style and your style is your style.
Understood, understood. That makes sense. Like you say, a blue suit is a blue suit, even if you're 5'5" or if you're 6'4". It just has to be tailored the right way. And even speaking of suits, I talked about this off the air, and I went to an event, a couple of weeks ago, and I wind up, messaging Earl just to get his approval. I said, hopefully the suit looks good, and luckily he gave me a thumbs up because I you realize being around other executives and those type of events that style does matter. It's part of your executive presence or executive swagger that it does matter. And I was one of those people. Nothing's wrong with getting off the rack, but then all of a sudden you get a tailored suit, you be like, okay, I know the difference. Yeah, there's a big difference between the two. So when it comes to colors, some, like you say, some people loved certain colors. This is what they wear. This is what they're comfortable with. How are you working, getting them out of their comfort zone, saying, hey, no, this color that you probably don't usually wear, this is the one that'll definitely work for you, and what it means when you wear this color.
Yeah. So one of the things examples I like to use is Spider-Man and Superman. Spider-Man and Superman, they wear these leotards, don't they? And they run around jumping off buildings and stuff like that and just doing crime and helping people. But then outside of that, what are they wearing? You see them in casual, ordinary clothes, right? So I subscribe to wear what you need to wear to get the job done. And that way, you're doing well. It's a good place to start. Some people subscribe to authenticity, where it's not my authentic self. I'm not feeling authentic in this. There's a time and a place for that. And if you're not at that place whereby you can be wholly authentic, then sometimes you just need to be at the place where you are right now, trying to get to where you want to be. And that might mean just towing the line and looking the part. So in terms of colors, yeah, people wear different things and like different things, but is it the right color to get the job done? Is it the right color for the right setting? Is it conveying the right message that you want to convey? And although you may like a certain pattern, if it's not in line with what you're trying to do, your directive, then why would you wear it? If it's taking away from that, why would you wear it? Because it's hindering you and your progress. I mean, when you meet people, we have 7 seconds, as they say, to make an impression. And you know what, whether we like it or not, we're human and we have these biases. So we just engage in them subconsciously. We're doing it anyways, right? So sometimes communication can be quite challenging for sometimes. So why put an extra layer in there? If we can reduce the layers, then that helps with communication, doesn't it? And getting your point across a little bit quicker and a little smoother and a little easier. So, yeah, not all colors translate or not good in all settings. So wear the right ones for the setting and the communication you're trying to convey in that moment.
I like what you said with the 7 seconds. I think that's a good rule of thumb for somebody like, or at least myself, who's a novice, for instance. What about accessories? I mean, is there something we should take away from an expert like yourself with respect to accessories?
Mm. That's a good question because accessories a lot of time are expressions, aren't they? They are our individual tastes, our unique tastes. And for whatever reason, we may be wearing a pin because it reminded me of a group that we're a part of, or my wife, girlfriend, brother, sister gave me something. And so, yeah, I understand them. But again, will the person you're trying to communicate to understand this as well? Will there be a line of a barrier between them as well? So I tend to look towards clear communication. And with that means taking things away. So yes, you may like beads, you may like certain kind of rings, you may like to wear 4 or 5 rings on your hand. You may like to wear accoutrements on your lapels and things like that. That again may have a time and a place, and that every time and every place would require you doing those things. So until you're in a position you feel comfortable with all those things, then yes, I would say strip them away, and then you can begin to layer them on at some point. But if it's going to take away and diminish your message or confuse your messaging on your brand, then don't do it. Or think twice and proceed cautiously.
Advice. So you don't draw the distinction between a technology watch or smartwatch versus a, I don't know, luxury watch, for example, as an accessory. So if I think of executives, should they be wearing a luxury watch as an accessory versus a smartwatch, or it doesn't matter?
Well, good question, because again, in setting, let's say if you're in tech, right, and that means innovation. You're doing things, things are changing at a rapid pace these days. So there's two thoughts you could be there, two schools you could be in. Either luxury to say what I've arrived, I'm doing really well for myself, or technology to say I'm on the cusp of things. I'm an innovator. Would your group and people around you expect to see you wearing technology, wearable technology? Then it made sense, right? But then again, in that evening, you may go to a gala, and maybe a tech gala as well, maybe an awards event, and a more luxury watch may be more appropriate in that setting. But during the course of the day, before you got there at the event or the seminar, a technology watch might be better fitting there as well. So you sort of have to think and see what's appropriate for that group of people and that setting that I'm going to be in. That's essentially how I would actually advise somebody.
Practical. I like that.
Very good, very good. Now, we talking about more suits, your professional setting, and I know you say you do a separate consultation, and that's more on the casual wear. And there's different settings for that. Of course, you can't wear a suit everywhere. Sometimes it requires you to take a little step back in what you're wearing. Could you go through the process on the casual side as well for us?
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, you go to work and you're wearing your shirts and suits and tie and all that kind of stuff, and that's one side. But then you're going casual. So let's say, for instance, you're going on to an event. Because a lot of times people are going away to places that they're still conducting business, but not formally. It's more informal. So now I'm used to seeing you dress a certain way formally for business, but now we're just out casually. And if you show up in like a college tee and cargo shorts and slides, then it's like, okay, wait, you look polished in the office, but then outside of that, so who are you? Do you know what I mean? So there has to be continuity there. So again, it's the same thing. We look at where you're going, who are you going to be around, what are you trying to achieve? And so from that, we can look towards the types of clothing you will wear. Also comfort. You're traveling on a plane. How do I dress to the airport? Right? Obviously, you're not going to wear your suit on the airport. You can wear a type of suit to the airport as well, right? So you still look respectable and you still look polished, but you're still looking a little different, more comfortable because you're looking at the fabrications that you're going to be wearing. 'Cause you want to be relaxed, right? So you might have something that has more stretch and more give, a knit as opposed to a woven. Not to get too technical for your viewers, but there is a distinction. Um, some fabrics look more casual and others look more dressy. So it's taking into consideration those types of things. So yes, so when you put together a casual wardrobe, there are certain elements that translate very well in your social setting. And we're looking for continuity, as I say. So it's got to be of a taste level as well that's almost equivalent and similar to what somebody would expect you to see during the course of the day in your formal business settings. So that wouldn't be your slides. It could be a nice, nice shoe, and it wouldn't be shorts. It would be a nice pair of tailored pants, but in maybe a more comfortable and appropriate fabric that helps you to relax, feel cool, but still look elevated at the same time.
So are branded logo woven shirts out of the question then, or do you have a different
Totally.
perspective?
Yeah, so do you know what? I tend to stay again, we're looking at communication, right? So you may like a certain brand and that other brand, somebody might find offensive. So if somebody asks you, you can say, yes, it's a certain brand. If you're screaming out at you straight away, does that necessarily give you credibility? Again, we're looking at communication. We're trying to make it as easy so we can communicate to as many people as possible. Now, you may want to niche down and say, yes, okay, I wear a certain brand because I know this particular audience would respond to that brand, or me wearing a certain things. Then that's different. But if you're looking for the broader appeal, then yes, we looking at things that have more of a broader appeal as opposed to more niche and subjective.
I'm learning so much today, especially about dressing for the airport. You're just trying to get on the plane, you worry about, most people worry about just dressing up later, they have it in their bag, etcetera. You're just trying to be as comfortable as possible. If you could go a little deeper about the airport piece, because I need to know about that. How would you dress as, the person who's a CEO, executive, maybe a board of directors, just
Mhm.
to go to the airport? How would that outfit be for them? Are you wearing a sports coat or you're not? I'm just so curious.
Yeah. My rule of thumb is to always wear a sports coat. Now, as I said before, we have wovens and knits. So your typical um, work suit jacket is a woven, right? And knit is more casual. So it's something like what I'm wearing right now. Soft shoulder. So basically, when you're looking at the inners of the garment, there's nothing inside it. There's no shoulder pads. There's no canvassing. There's nothing. There's no lining. It's just like a cardigan, but sewn together like a sports jacket. So it's very comfortable. You've got complete range of motion. You can reach for things high or low, bend over. You're fine. So that type of a knit, yes, you would wear to the airport. Again, the same thing with the pants as well. You're going with the same type of fabric with that. It's almost like you could almost do yoga in this jacket. Is that comfortable, right?
Wow.
It kind of gives you that range of motion. But then when you get to where you're going, that's when you put on maybe your other type of business formal wear. You could wear a t-shirt, well, a polo knit, you could wear, what else could you wear? Your shoes would be comfortable shoes. They wouldn't be a leather sole shoe. There's lots of shoes in the market these days. They call them the brown shoes because they're not running shoes and they're not formal shoes. So there's a category in between now that you can wear. And that would look quite well put together as well. So yes, depending on where you're going and who you're meeting, if you're jumping right off the plane into a meeting, then that's something a little different, right? But if you've got time to go to the airport, to the hotel and change, then yes, wear something similar to what I'm wearing, not necessarily a buttoned shirt, but you could wear a polo knit or a t-shirt or a Henley. You always want to be just projecting your best self, right? And we've lost a sense of occasion, unfortunately, right? Because of the advent of business casual, everything's become casual. The way we talk to people has become casual as well. Sometimes our approach to work is casual. But when you dress up, the psychological and physiological changes that you go through, they're marked. They're different. You know that when you're wearing a suit, your posture changes. The way people receive you and talk to you changes. And the way you talk changes as well. And sometimes your attitude to where you address your work can change as well. Now, when you're more casual, your language changes too, and the way people see you changes as well, and the way they respond to you changes. So, clothing has a sociological effect as well on those that who you're receiving and those who you talk to as well.
I love how you framed it because at the end of the day, we talk a lot about communication in the workplace. And a lot of times that's perceived as or interpreted as the words coming out of your mouth or the words you write in an email or any other document like that. But I think what you're giving us is a sense about communication doesn't stop with your hands on a keyboard or the words coming out. It actually continues with your physical presence. And I'm looking at you right now, and those listening to this episode won't get this benefit. But if you're watching on YouTube, absolutely, I see somebody who is not only elegantly dressed, but looks very effortless. So just your body language alone is communicating a great deal about your presence without you saying a single word. And I think that's something we all want for ourselves, but we don't know how to go about it.
Mm.
So, with the way we work these days, hybrid, sometimes online, sometimes offline, do you see a difference in the way you approach your work and how you dress your clients online versus, say, offline?
Mhm. That's a good question, there, actually. Because you are right. We are in a time and a space whereby sometimes you're just in front of a screen for a couple of days, and then you have to leave your house and go actually meet people face to face, right? And how do we do that? And that's been quite the question that people trying to understand. What do I do? You know, but I don't think anything particularly much changes. You're still communicating a message, as you said before. It's still a message that you want to communicate. So, what is your message? When you're online, you still want to come across a certain way. Um, when people meet you, actually, let me say this: brands spend millions of dollars on packaging a product when they put it on the shelf. That says something because they want you to choose that, right? They want to convey a certain message. So when we look at ourselves, we are our brand. So what message are we trying to communicate? We want people to choose us sometimes, right? So how do I now package myself for people to respond the way I want them to respond? you know so whether you be online or in person, just take a sense of pride. It's not going to be a t-shirt on big logos and hi honey, I love you, kiss me twice. You know what I mean? It's not that kind of thing, or your favorite football sports team, right? It's have some, I guess, some respect for the person you're engaging as well, right? Not only for yourself but who you're meeting as well. It's one thing to when people see it's easier to undress than to dress, right? So when somebody sees you for the first time, if they see you in a really elevated style, then they see you again later and you're less so. They know that you're elevated, so you must be kind of just dressing down, right? But if they engage you for the first time and you really dress down, that sticks in their mind. So no matter what you try to do to even look elevated the second time, they're going to remember, oh yeah, he was kind of sloppy last time, right? You know, that's his norm. This is him making an effort, as opposed to the other way around. They would assume that the way you dress pristine and really well, that's your norm, as opposed to when they see you socially, it's something more casual. But the unfortunate thing is, we haven't been taught how to dress, right? No, there's no course in school. You go to universities and those course there either. There's no emphasis either. So you're just trying to figure it out for yourself. But not a lot of people are equipped with the necessary skill set for that. And you might go shopping to a store, a very good gentleman's store that sells really nice fabrics and nice clothing and best designers and things like that. But as I said before in the opening, if somebody's not going to sit with you and talk you through your process to try to help you to understand your why, then you're just a guy in nice clothes that may be ill-fitting and may not be appropriate for what you're trying to do, right? So there has to be somebody there, like myself, that can help you decode and understand and interpret what it is you're trying to achieve.
That is very powerful indeed. Yeah. I'm thinking about myself when I was first shopping for a suit. It was very easy for me to walk into, for example, a Brooks Brothers and ask them what would look good on me, but they would only tell me about a suit or a shirt or maybe a t-shirt or two that they sold there. But to your point, I know I never received an education on it, and I just copied everybody else, and I'm sure most of us did exactly that.
Hmm.
We replicated the outfits that our colleagues at work wore.
Right. And there is a standard, right? There is a work standard for some environments, right? Again, tech might be a little easier. So I'll give you an example. Had a client once, and he was going from corporate suit, shirt, and tie to more of a tech startup type situation. He was a little older than his underlings, and but he didn't want to stand out. He still wanted to be the boss at the same time, right? So now he's kind of dressed for this environment that he's not really familiar with, and he's used to suits, shirts, and ties. So what do you do, right? So therefore, we looked at, okay, what's the environment? Okay, so they're wearing a lot of jeans, wearing hoodies, and emblems, stuff like that. So how do we elevate you then? So we look at aspiration. So we put them in brands that they could aspire to. We know on their pay grade, they wouldn't be kind of affording that, but it's still a pair of jeans, but it was a higher level pair of jeans, right? The runners he was wearing, they're still runners, but they were hard to find ones. So there's always a slight distinction. Although he looked very similar to them, there was just a slight distinction that if you knew, you knew. And most of the time, those people did know that he was working with. And so he was able to elevate himself, but still at the same time, not look too awkward in that group of people that he was actually overseeing. We look at also NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, right? Looked at him previously as he was building the company. It was khakis, shirts, things like that. But then he had a huge image overhaul because now he knew he's going to be on the stage speaking innovation for his company. So he wears black. Not only does he wear black, he wears a lot of leather, right? So therefore, there was a slight distinction between him and, say, his predecessor in tech, as in, the King Steve Jobs, right, with his black turtleneck and jeans. So he went all black, right? But the leather jacket gave him just an added edge of cool, a bit more cachet, and made him more current as well at the same time as well. And I'm sure he didn't do that by himself. I'm sure he consulted somebody, a stylist, to help him communicate what's the message here? How should I come across? Innovation, cool, on the cutting edge. Okay. And also at the same time, I don't want to think too much in the morning what to wear. Okay, everything's going to be black. You've got a slew of leather jackets. You choose which one you want to wear. It's going to be a black top and a black pair of jeans and a pair of black boots or runners. Easy. And if it fills the brief.
You were telling the truth. Back in the day when tech was just starting, I guess our brand was khakis for everybody, but style does matter. It's almost in a sense listening to how you go about things. It's almost like quiet communication. That's what your style is portraying. You're having this conversation, but you're not really talking. Your clothes are having the conversation for you, if that makes sense. And being in those certain rooms, etcetera, you're right. First impressions do matter. If you dress down first and all of a sudden you dress up, people don't see you as the person dressing up. They see you as the person they first met, this person dressing down, like you said, with some khaki shorts on, some flip flops. That's where they will always see you. So style does matter. It's all part of that executive presence that you're trying to portray. And I love that it's a quiet conversation that your clothes have
Mm.
with other people in the room, just saying, "Hey, I belong in this room, and this is why. This is who I am, and this is what I'm trying to portray." And just going back to some other things earlier, that is there we talk about tech. Is there a difference in dress? Say we talked about technology, but how about a person in finance compared to someone who's in a different industry? Is there a different look for those different type of executives outside of tech?
Yeah, definitely. Yes. Again, finance is, well, you see finance bros, right, walking around with.
Mhm.
So, finance seems to have a very tech and herd mentality. Some people don't want to step out too far. Now, if you're finance part of a team, that's one thing. If you're finance part of your own shop, that's different as well, right? So there are some separations in between one or the other. So let's say you're part of a team, part of a huge company. then if you're client facing, that's something else. If you're just in the office, that's something else too. If you're part of the team and you're trying to get to the next level, then that's another consideration as well. So there's very many different kind of segments in terms of the kind of direction you're trying to move in. Yes, it's essentially it is a suit. And the good thing right now is that people are moving back to suits and leather shoes, not being too casual. And those who do that are elevated and standing out as well and performing at such a high level as well. But again, if you're client facing and you're meeting people, then you have to think, how am I expected to be perceived by the person who I'm meeting the first time? What will they expect from me? You know, so is it better to come out guns blazing, looking amazing, or should I slightly dim that and come out in just same kind of way, same kind of vein, but just a little less? Again, it's understanding your audience. You dress according to your audience and the settings you find yourself in. But one of the things that I think I'd like to also convey is the power of clothing, probably underestimate it. And one of the example I'd like to use is con men. How are con men able to find themselves and weave themselves into situations? It's because they look a certain way. You go into that doctor's office or ward and you put on a white coat. Now, if that con man was walking through in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, alarm bells would go off and red flags. But because he's got the coat on, we assume he's supposed to be there. He's communicating what we think and what we see should be the right communication, right? So a lot of times it's about how should we be seen? What would people expect us to be? Many times I've been in situations just dressed up nicely and people assume things about me. I've been invited into doors. I'm like, I'm not going there. Oh, we thought you were part of this group. Well, you thought you were the owner. Could you dress like what people would perceive the owner to be? Right. So we all have these biases in our heads. And when you check the boxes like con men do, you get the buy-in and off you go. Right.
So true, so true. I feel like stepping in there was a video you put on Instagram that was about Suits, the show.
Yes.
And I can't remember all the people's names, but
Mm,
the main character, he had a nice suit on, and the other one he gave him, said, "Hey, this is my tailor.
mm.
Go to him and buy a bunch of suits." And why is that? Not only as the person being the owner of a law firm, etc., why is it important for the people who work there to also follow suit in a sense, for that business?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that sums up so much for me when I remembered that actually. Uh, Ending, right. You go to a law firm on a prestigious street. What are you expecting to see when you walk in? Number one, it's going to be a great building and a great office. It's all the packaging, isn't it? And then when you sit down in front of somebody, everybody's going to look fantastic and put together. It's a reflection of that product, of who they are. So yes, Harvey Specter in the TV show Suits, well dressed, impeccably dressed. Why? Because he presents the best, right? He gets results. He gets the results that you want. And so when you've got Mike, his underling, who's just coming in, yes, he's junior. He's not going to look like Harvey, but he can look almost in the shadow of Harvey, almost in the same standard, but probably not quite, because he's on his way. He's on his journey to get there. However, Mike reflects Harvey. When Mike is out and about and he's a part of this firm, there's a reflection, right? There's a standard we expect. If I'm paying thousands of dollars for your service, at least look like it. I was working with one particular man, and he owned a flower store, and he changed his whole product. And so he went from wearing jeans and t-shirts. He went from wearing jeans and t-shirts to different things. And so he elevated his product. Why would you look the same as you would before? Right? wear something different. Therefore, wear what people would expect when they're paying thousands of dollars for your service. So that was the thing with Mike and Harvey. He was like, look the part, look like the money that we're charging, look because you're representing our brand.
That is so important. A good friend of mine told me one thing, and it sticks with me, especially when it comes to the way you present yourself. He said that you're always being interviewed and you're always being vetted. So if you think with that in mind every time, you'll start thinking about what clothes you wear, how you approach people, etc. Because every conversation, either the quiet conversation with your when we're talking about clothing, or even speaking to somebody, it's an interview. You're
Yes.
being vetted. And it's very important for people to understand. And so glad we had you on our podcast to understand that clothing matters. It
Mm.
it matters in that setting. If you like you say, if you want to have somebody portray, you want to convey this, it may be, you want to be powerful, or you might just want to be eccentric. The clothes do matter when you're trying to have that quiet conversation with someone else. So it is so great to have you on our podcast today. And I know we're getting close to time. And of course, I ask everyone, what is their theme music when you're getting ready and maybe getting in the car, maybe you getting ready to style somebody? What's that music that you love to listen to before you start your day?
Well, there's two songs that come to mind actually. Actually, there's a whole bunch of songs to be honest with you. The whole bunch. I'll narrow it down to two though, two that I enjoy. One is Thank You, the 12-inch remix by BB Winans. And the other one is As Stevie Wonder.
Oh, two good ones, two good ones, two good ones. And Earl, if somebody wants to reach out to you for your services, where could they contact you?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. And my audience is typically on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, just go to Earl Rich and you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Great, great. Oh, man, it has been a pleasure. Earl, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and give us some knowledge on what we need to do in order to portray who we're trying to be and wear the right outfits, suits, etc. Like I said, I had to make sure to ping you just to get the thumbs up on what I wore for that event. So it has been a pleasure. And
Mm.
for our Black Belts and Boardrooms audience, we will see you on the next one.